What if World War I happens in the modern day? And in today's video, we're going to see that. But before we start the video, I want to mention that all major alliances in this video are going to be disbanded. Make sure to subscribe to my second channel. But now let's get right into the video. The first thing that we're going to have to do is, for the sake of this video, we're going to have to reunite Austria-Hungary. And this scenario is going to play out in the same ways. In the initial days, we can see that Germany kind of moves away from the West. They start their own alliance with the Turks, the Austro-Hungarians, as well as the Italians. And then the Austro-Hungarians want to return to its former glory, and so they start off by declaring war on Serbia. Now there's going to be a slight bit of difference between this and World War I, and that is going to be Russia's involvement. So let's see what happens here. Starting off, we can see that the Austro-Hungarians now push into Serbia, and they push in from the northern parts. We can see that they were able to secure a lot of these regions, and eventually they now push down, and after a very bloody battle, Belgrade was captured. The Serbs are now able to mobilize all of their forces, but this is very late as they've already lost a significant portion of their country. And with some help from the Germans, the Austro-Hungarians are able to blitzkrieg through Serbia. After the surrender of a lot of these regions, the remaining parts of Serbia also go ahead and surrender. And now let's take a look at a peace negotiation. In this peace negotiation, we can see that all of Serbia got completely annexed by the Austro-Hungarians. And here's the twist. Russia is going to be more close to the Germans, and this new alliance between the Germans, the Italians, the Turks, and, well, now the Russians. Even though Russia loved Serbia, but they're gonna have to back off now. Seeing all of this expansion and Germany moving away, the UK and France are gonna start their own alliance, which is gonna be to counter these guys and the expansion. But yeah, for now, we're gonna call these the Axis and this alliance the Allies. Now it's gonna be Italy's turn, as we can see that they also declare war on Slovenia. And right away, we can see that the Italian forces now push into Slovenia. The capital city was captured. Most of the Slovenian forces were destroyed and the remaining parts of Slovenia surrender. And once again, in a peace negotiation, we can see that all of Slovenia got completely annexed by the Italians. And all of these guys are just going after countries. Now it's time for Turkey to show everyone that they're capable too. And with the support from their allies, like Italy, the Germans, and the Russians, also the Austro-Hungarians, we can see that in a weird move, they go ahead and declare war on the Bulgarians. This is to kind of connect with everyone. In their support are going to be the Austro-Hungarians. Bulgaria is pretty much screwed, but let's see how this plays out. We can see that the Turks enter Bulgaria. They capture the city of Burgas, and eventually they push up, and they were able to capture Varna. The Austro-Hungarians now also enter, and they're following the Danube River. The Turkish forces now start their campaign from Varna. They push up, cutting off the western parts of Bulgaria from the mainland, which then go ahead and surrender. They now also start to follow the Danube River, and eventually they were able to meet up with the Austro-Hungarians. Both these countries now combine their forces and they start to push down. In this process, they were able to destroy most of the Bulgarian forces. Now they capture Sofia, the Bulgarian capital city, after which the remaining parts of Bulgaria surrender. This was a decisive victory for the Turks, as well as the Axis. In a peace negotiation, we can see that Turkey got all of Bulgaria, and now all of these Axis forces are connected via land, except for Russia. But yeah, at this point, the US and their allies UK and France, they say it's enough. They can't take it anymore, and so the US and Canada also join the Allied forces. But even right now, they aren't gonna declare war on the Axis. Belarus joins Russia, by the way, because everyone here is expansionist. And now we can see that a very major war is gonna happen, which is gonna result in upcoming major wars. That is, we can see that finally the Germans also go into the offensive. They declare war on Poland, which is very typical. But this time we can see that the Russians also join in, and things are not looking good for Poland, as they did not have a treaty with the UK and France like they did in World War II. So for right now, they're kinda on their own, but this is going to trigger a lot of upcoming events in the future. So let's see. Starting off, since the Axis were prepared for this, we can see that the troops from Kaliningrad now push into Poland, meeting up with the main Russian armies. The Germans also start a push in, and they are able to secure all of these regions because they're afraid of their capital city being right on the border with Poland. They also start a push up, securing the coastal regions of Poland. The Polish forces are now fully mobilized, and they're sent to the front lines. The Russian troops also arrive on the front lines, starting their own offensive. They also were able to somehow make a naval landing up here, securing a very major city, and now the Germans are able to push in. As the Polish retreat, the Russians send even more troops in. These troops push down, encircling and securing all of these regions. The Germans now meet up with the Russians, and these two countries combine their forces. Now they eventually start a push down. The Polish troops are unable to push these guys back as they are overwhelmed. Their armies are getting destroyed every day. The Russians also make another push from here, and it's pretty obvious that they're pushing towards Warsaw. These armies combine their forces, and eventually, after a very bloody battle, Warsaw was captured, the northern parts surrender, and these troops continue their push down. They were able to secure another major city, cutting Poland into two parts. But after all of this devastation, the remaining parts of Poland surrender, and later on, we can see that Poland got split between the Germans and the Russians. These borders look absolutely hideous, but it is what it is. And at this point, all of these countries are connected via land. They're kind of choking the Eastern European countries who might get rolled over by these guys. At this point, the Allied forces have had enough. In order to put an end to this expansion, we can see that all of the Allied forces now declare war on the Axis. And now this is going to be a massive war. So once again, let's see how this plays out. The problem in World War I was that the Germans had to first knock out the French, and then they would have to refocus their troops on Russia. But now there is no Russia to worry about. So all of these countries are just going to put all of their troops on these front lines with the French. It's pretty obvious what's going to happen. So yeah, now let's see. Also in World War I, Britain had a lot of countries on their side. French too, but now they don't have that anymore. So let's see. Well, starting off, since the Allied forces were prepared for this and they declared war first, there were a lot of Brits on these French front lines, and they started pushing from Alsace-Lorraine. They do make some progress in Germany, but the Germans, the Russians, the Austro-Hungarians, the Turks, as well as the Italians, everyone is sending their troops on these front lines. For right now, the French and the Brits are pushing into Germany here. But down in the south, the Italians were successfully able to take Corsica as it was not heavily defended. The Italians also start their mini campaign down in the south, securing some French cities. The French are now pretty much worried as they're fighting a two-front war. In the sea, we can see that there's a naval fight going on, and on one side we have the Germans and the Russians. On the other side we have the US and the British Navy. The Royal Navy and the US Navy is much better, so fight not going too well for the Germans and the Russians. At this point, the US troops have also arrived on the front lines, but the Russians and all of the other Axis forces have also arrived. The French do get pushed back in the north. The Austro-Hungarians and the Turks send their troops into Italy, and they continued the southern campaign. They made astonishing progress, and because of this, the French had to take out their troops from here and send them down. So that was not the best decision, maybe, as they get completely pushed out of Germany. And Germany was able to capture Alsace-Lorraine, and things are not looking good for the Allied forces. The Brits and the US keep sending their troops in. They're kind of overwhelmed right now. At this point, the Russians and the Germans send in their main armies, and now this won't be looking good for the Allied forces, as these guys now continue their push in, making astonishing progress again, and they were able to encircle and capture Paris, the capital city of the French. And from here, they were able to encircle a lot of British and US troops who are being surrounded and killed. But once again, they were taken out from the sea, and they go back to Britain, and all of these northern parts are lost. The troops in the south now push up, and the troops in the north now push down, cutting off the eastern parts of France from the mainland, cutting France into two parts. The eastern half surrenders, and at this point, all of the US forces have evacuated, so have the Brits, and the French are left to die. At some point, they do surrender because their cities were getting destroyed, and this was very unexpected. Canada was just here to give emotional support, but France fell, and this changes everything. And now let's take a look at this peace negotiation here. The war still continues, but France got divided up like this. The Germans took all of the northern parts, Italians took the southern parts, and now it's just going to be naval warfare, which the US and Britain kind of dominate in the sea, but no further naval landings are going to be made for right now. These areas are all protected by the German and the Russian Navy. These coastal regions are also kind of protected. Yeah, the Germans are now going to switch their focus to the Benelux countries, who are left on their own. The Germans declare war on these guys, and things are not looking good for the Benelux countries. countries. Luxembourg fell within a day. We can see that the Germans now push into Belgium, capturing the capital city, and they also surrender. The Dutch were able to put up some resistance, but at the end of the day, they are completely surrounded by the Germans. With all of this death and destruction, they also go ahead and surrender. This was a pretty easy victory for the Germans, and now we can see that all of the Benelux countries are completely annexed. This further angers the Allied forces, but they're not able to do anything right now. The war still continues, and in our next video, we're gonna see some countries possibly joining the Allied forces to stop this expansion, and these countries will include Spain and Portugal, all of Scandinavia, Ukraine, Romania, as well as Syria. This is gonna be a huge coalition. The US is also going to prepare themselves, but yeah, this is gonna be it for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe, leave a comment down, tell me what you guys want to see in the future, and thank you for watching.